So I have these sun catchers that I got from Walmart, and they were just $1 each. So I'm gonna paint one of these today and we'll see how it goes. I don't have much of a plan other than I don't think I'm going to use the paints that it comes with, just because I find they typically aren't that great. I think for the ghost's body, it's gonna be best to use a white Posca. So I'm just going to start with that and go from there. So I found filling in the ghost with the white Posca paint pen to be a fairly quick, easy process because of it's a paint pen, so it's really easy to hold, but it did leave a bunch of visible stroke marks, which I didn't really love. So I thought I would try to cover that up with just using some regular white acrylic paint and painting over with that. And it definitely smooths things out. There's a lot less strokes and patchiness going on, but what I found after I held this up to the light after painting everything in, that you could still see the strokes from using the paint pen on the backside when you hold the sun catcher up to the window. But once I have the ghost filled and it's completely white, I just rubbed off the paint that got in the black parts to keep the face nice and black. And I wanted to use my Neon Karen Brush Marker Pros to fill in the rest of the sun catcher because I thought they would be some fun bright colors, and because it's an ink-based marker, that the ink would flow and not leave any sort of strokes on the rest of the sun catcher. And I found that worked really well, so I just went around and filled all the little crevices with the markers. It also helps that these markers are brush tip nibs, so you can get into really fine areas, but then also fill bigger areas quickly as well. And I did end up filling some areas twice to make sure the color was extra pigmented, and also went back in to touch up the paint on the ghost. So after I made the ghost, I was still trying to think of different ways to create a nice white color for these sun catchers that doesn't have the clear strokes that I didn't like. And I thought I would try some white watercolor. So I just have this basic watercolor palette that I had picked up at Ross. It's not anything super special. And just taking my water, dipping my brush in it, grabbing some pigment, and just going around and filling in the skull with it. And just going back into other places to make sure that the skull has a even layer of pigment before moving on to the rest of the skull. Once I finished laying down that white for the skull, I'm going in with my Neon Karen Brush Marker Pro markers again. I really enjoyed how they look on the sun catcher, so I just went with those again to fill in the details on the skull. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. I like the white part on this one a lot more. Though I still love my ghosty friend. He's still very cute. I just really am happy to have found a way to avoid brush strokes. So the other project that I had is to create a velvet coloring page. Like those very popular like velvet coloring art posters from like the 90s. I came across this Mickey and Friends Halloween coloring book at the dollar store, and since those are simpler, less complicated shapes, I thought that'd be great to turn into a page for this project. So I just took a picture of one page and took it into Photoshop, doing my best to get it to black and white and as clear as possible with just simple adjustment layers. And once I had that as close as possible, I went in and tried to make selections so I could fill in any random holes in the picture. And then I just went and took a good old brush tool to clean it up. And once I had it the way I liked it, I removed the white from the image because we just want a transparent image for the Cricut to cut. And so I created a document in Cricut, just sized it to the size that I wanted. I used an 8.5 by 11 sheet of adhesive flocked velvet. And I found that I enjoyed the felt setting on my Cricut. I found that worked really well, although I only did one pass of cutting instead of the two that it recommends. And it was quite the process to weed it and get it on attached to the paper. But once I got that on the paper, all that's left is to just color. So I'm using mostly these few Tombow markers to color in most of the spots. And I'm just using Mickey photos as a reference. You can also see on the left, I had taken a picture and done a little color study on my iPad to get an idea of what colors I wanted to use. And I'm filling in the skeleton with my neon yellow-green Karen brush marker again because I wanted it to feel like the skeleton was like a glow-in-the-dark costume and that it was glowing. So I just went and filled in all of those spaces with the bones with that color. And then once I had that, I also went in and colored Mickey's face to look as if the light was glowing onto his face as well. And then I added some highlights to the skull using my crisp white Amanda Rach Lee and Archer and Olive acrylograph pen. I hope you enjoyed this spooky art video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.